Hello, everyone. This is María Montero Sierra, Head of Program of TVA 21 Academy and curator of this episode dedicated to the work of Fana Fraser that was commissioned by TVA 21 Academy for a stage. Thank you, Fana, for joining me in this conversation. Fana Fraser is an interdisciplinary artist, director, performer, educator, and full-spectrum doula. Her choreographic work stands for a queer, Black, brown, Trinidadian femme perspective, where she imprints, as she said, narratives of erotism, power, and compassion. Fana's work opens up deep emotions. It has been seen in her choreographic and staging work. And in her own words, she's constantly slowing her mind, unwinding and opening up her body to be swayed by everyday mystical experiences. Fana and I started this conversation years ago, thinking about the ocean and how our bodies relentlessly stretch and twist between floating and drifting. And we were wondering how the earth, how other body movements, how other forms of breathing could perform a potential space of connecting between the medium, the ocean, and our bodies. And we question ourselves how this would it mean for the Caribbean histories. So thank you, Fana, to be with me and walking through all the many references of your work and to just walk as well through this specific work that you have brought to us, that is a choreography for the camera that I believe is your first video work. And so it's a pleasure.
Wow. Thank you, Maria. Thank you. I am thinking to so many things already.
Fantastic.
So many windows and doors. My mind have just flung open and I just see billowing curtains and information swirling. I'm so excited to be in this ongoing conversation with you.
Indeed, ongoing. So let's start maybe from the beginning. It's a short video of 3 minutes, but it is full of references and aesthetic choices. And I wanted to start from the beginning, from the early footage that we see in the video, where we hear the birds singing and we immediately hear your breathing coming out, what it feel like coming out from the underwater. Why did you decide to choose to link these two ecosystems, the sky from home of the birds and the underwater world?
The first thing that is coming for me to say is that it feels like a natural progression of who I am, where I am coming from, where my creations are coming from, and who the people who I am now working with to be in that breath exchange of conversation, we who have access to certain voice, to vocal cords and to voice. I'm thinking too about the creation of character and characterization, and what felt important in this work was for me to develop a being that I could relate to, and that in collaboration with Haruna Azumi, who is the amazing director of this film, that we could both relate to, and imagine that others perhaps can also feel with and feel towards. I've been dancing for a long time. So I also send love to my family for supporting that child who was outside playing, looking at the sky, hula hooping, running races, riding bikes, dancing in front of the TV. I think that 7-year-old energy definitely is one of the spirits powering this film, this first film that I am executive producing. This is blowing my mind that I'm saying these things because they have been dreams and hopes, aspirations, excitements, longings. When I was 11, I danced a dance for a national children's talent show, 12 and under, that was hosted by Hazel Ward Redman. And I was a dance student at Caribbean School of Dancing. I have to call out all of these places because this is all of where it's coming from. And I did this dance choreographed by Joanne Deckel with assistance from Claudia Applewhite and John Christopher. And that was to a piece of music, dialogue between the wind and the sea. And I am from Kairi, Trinidad and Tobago. And that Breezy Hill is the name of the street that I grew up on. So I have been playing and dancing with the elements of wind and sea for a very, very, very long time.
I'm happy to see how it came together again in this work, that it will last and could be seen for many. You mentioned characters, and that bring my attention to something that I wanted to ask you, which is related to the air that is mediating the singing of the birds, but it's also our human breathing, your breathing very strongly, that is connected to the Yoruba iconography that you took as a reference, and in a way you are impersonated in the video. I think, but maybe you will correct me. Can you tell us about this Orisa Aja and why you choose it as a reference for this work?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I grew up Catholic, and I have many complicated feelings about that religious upbringing. I attended St. Joseph's Convent. I'm hoping that, somebody from St. Joseph's Convent eventually will hear this and continue dancing. And I was also studying at one point theology, and Trinidad has such a complex range of religious and spiritual practices, which are not particularly practices that I am initiated in. So I want to make that super clear, but that I do look to and look with an absolute understanding or feeling that I know and understand some of the energy systems that are circulating. My body is dancing right now in this thought. Yeah, so I say that to say I have done my own independent research and study of multiple spiritual, religious energy systems and practices that I feel that the development of this new goddess, deity, being, woman, powerhouse of desire, traveling, longing to create, knowing that she is a creatrix, and that she is in divine consort with the elements and moving through time and space to get to a point to do something, is sort of the formulation of energy that I have been researching upon, and that in conversation with Haruna and a few other people, we have sort of landed on this new creatrix or goddess, as you will.
You were saying actually this arrival to a space, to land somewhere, and I feel like this character, you dancing, is like breathing in and out of the water, is emerging and submerging, but eventually it is coming offshore. And one thing that you refer often in our previous conversation was about beaching and the arrival, in a way, and the connection between this land and water. And I don't know if you wanted to explain what it means, this beaching, to you. And I feel there was also a sense of reenactment of some kind of a spiritual component of using this god of the earth and the breathing. And of course, the breathing carries many meanings. And when it comes to beaching, it carries many other meanings. So, but more particularly to you and to this work, where did it carry you?
Yeah. Right now, in response to hearing you and remembering our conversations and seeing the trajectories and pathways and the practices and the readings and everything that we're doing through the past, couple years to ideate and dream upon this being and the land and her landing, beaching, coastlining. I'm thinking about now a practice that I developed in Puerto Rico when I was visiting at some point last year, coastlining the body. And it was a practice that was at the meeting, basically where the water, I say, kisses the land, just like ebbs right onto the sand and then retreats. And that place, such a liminal space to me, where I had a practice of, the water entering my nose and sputtering out of my mouth. And I just allowed myself to be right in the middle, sort of place, straddling, I think, multiple zones. And then taking that coastlining, beaching, practice to I've worked with students. I'm thinking now of Alexis Pauline Guns and her book Undrowned, and Pedagogies of Crossing by M. Jackie Alexander, another book that I was reading from and teaching with, and just letting that information crest upon me. The crest is the top of the wave, but yeah, I guess also crest, allowing myself to swim and to move and to be swayed by the sea. Arrival day. I'm thinking about Arrival Day now in Trinidad. That's been retermed Arrival Day, for our East Indian, heritage and that, complex history after, the emancipation of slavery. So yeah, thinking to my ancestry on my father's line, and the voice lessons from Samita Sinha, who works with Indian vocal tradition in a sense to disrupt and relocate tradition. There's so many things. I think the breath definitely has come from a practice, from a sustained practice of doing, of performing, and of teaching. Yeah.
Very much connected to what I was thinking as well. And now I hear you talking about this liminal space and how you decided this work that you were mentioning that you did in Puerto Rico, but it made me remembering things that we discussed of almost embracing that wave and embracing that movement, and how the body could do that in this exercise of moving differently. But it was also connected, which I think you also are expressing, of this position of yourself from your identity as a queer, Black, brown, Caribbean femme, and what it means to build an identity that it is, as you have mentioned, all these reference, like Alexis Polingam, you mentioned
and Alexander, Samita.
Exactly, and Alexander, but I am also thinking on Satiya Hatman and Dion Brown, and then it's like this building on this gap of the enslaved bodies and the one body and the missing of that space to anchor it, and how it can be anchored in the present and in the past. And it felt to me that you were honoring many, many voices and reference, not only theoretical reference, but bodies. You have in previous work bring the Black women and the Caribbean women at the front with such a powerful energy. And here it feels to me a bit in a different rhythm, in a different tone, a bit more pausing, longer breath, syncing with the environment. And I wanted to hear about, I feel like you are honoring a certain moment, certain people, and if you wanted to express.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. I've been thinking, I'm hearing you, and like, again, so many things are just opening. Doors are flying open in my brain. It's just like information is just like everywhere. But I'm thinking to the word celebration. I'm also thinking to Kevin Kwashi, who I took a poetry class with, and began reading a couple of his books the past couple months. Thinking to celebration, thinking of words: light, celebration, joy, a kiss, and hope. I'm like breaking it down to like themes, like hope, hope, hope. Looking at that word and what it can mean, what it may have meant, and how I can realize more meaning. This being, I imagine that I had seen, there was a moment I remember I was, during the early pandemic, I think maybe as early as May 2020, I was at Fire Island in New York, and spending time just with the sea. I remember I had 2 hot water bottles, one on my chest and one on my womb. And I was just softening, opening, breathing, releasing, exhaling, taking really, 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 really deep breaths. I feel very lucky that I was able to be there at a point when, I think it was May 2021, perhaps, when New York was at the epicenter of the pandemic. So much death, so much death and policies, and just so much death and confusion and grief and rage, powerlessness, loss of hope. And I just remember taking several deep breaths at the ocean and beginning to see this being walking on the shore with dragging, 2 sacks. And I was like, oh my God, I have to make this. This is as if she appeared as if she were swimming for centuries, and had emerged dragging. And I was like, wow, okay, where is she going? What is her mission? What does she have to do? How can I make this?
That is bringing up one reference that you have already mentioned, and it is the one that actually anchor us or initiate our conversation, which is the fabulous book by the American writer Alexis Polinga, Undrown. And because, right, like GAMS is denouncing the precarious states of the ocean, the way that human is inflicting harm in different forms, from spill oil, extractivist practices. But I think it refers to what you were saying, one of the most, poetic and active approach is her analogy between connecting these survivors of the ocean that are both the mammals, the dolphins that she's referring to, as well as the black slave from the Black Atlantic time. And it was like these forms of the fugitive, almost like the dolphins carry forms of breathing away, always finding a way to escape. And there is a form of hope as well. And I know it has been a very important book, and I also think that it has a very specific way in which you include those pedagogies in the video by an alliance with a specific turtle that is a larger sea turtle, which is like the leatherback turtle. Who hatch every year in your homeland in Trinidad and Tobago. And you brought that reference, and maybe it's not that explicit on the film, but I think it was important.
Yeah, this takes it. Thank you, Maria, for reminding and like for doing that threading and that tying and that sort of memory location. Wow, which is what the turtles do. And this takes me to some of the reproductive justice lens that I also work from, which is, some of the tenets include the right to choose, the right to choose whether a person has a child or not. And that is such a powerful right and decision for a pregnant person to make. And that should be their right and their choice. And also thinking about pleasure and that the right to sexual pleasure and to sexual freedom in that sense feels really important for me to begin to say, especially in a Caribbean, a Trinidadian context where there is so much gender-based violence associated with the idea of female sexual power. And so I think to the leatherback turtles that nest in Matura, and to that power that needs to be protected. And so that is some of the thinking involved in the making and the production of this film.
You mentioned pleasure and sexuality, but also you work from this compassion aspect, right? I don't know if you wanted to tell us a bit more about the way you embody through your body, like the specific movements that you explore to bring those connections.
I feel myself at a point where I have more space and receiving a bit more support. Thank you to TBA 21 for the support to make this new work. And I'm feeling myself at a point now able to step, to move, to breathe, to fly, to swim, to basically take another move into the word compassion. And I have more space now, I think, to consider that word in my life and in the lives of other people, and how we can relate with more compassion. And I see that consideration in there is a kiss to land at the end. And I can remember and imagine that my hands are moving from my lips out to the world now a bit more. And I think the idea of hope, that word, I'm just going to throw out some words right now: hope, breath, reconciliation, patience, conversation, dialogue, engagement with others who may be different, because we are all such different beings. More patience, more time. I think in the kiss in this film is where I'm allowing myself to begin to consider that word.
You're moving as you are talking, and I feel this is part of of course, your choreographic dance soul. But the breathing is also very present, and I wanted to come back to the breathing as we discussed it at the beginning. Is an essential part of the film, that it carry the soundtrack. The breathing is also part of the bubbles, the sound of the bubbles, but it is also like its own instrument. Your body become an instrument that is carrying this sound, that is also journeying and making other different noises. And it is not the first time. So I wanted to ask you, how do you approach the musicality of your body? And if you can tell us a bit more of the traditions that you have brought to this work specifically.
Wow. Well, I feel like also with this film, I've also a personal project in a sense. It is my hope for people, for people to encounter the film and to see it, to feel it, to hear it, to taste, to smell, and to be, for some sort of interest in conversation to spark, and to like spark additional conversations. But it has also been a personal project for me as I feel myself coming more to my own voice. And that has always been a point of fascination and wonder and conflict for me as I come into my own voice. And I'm realizing with, for instance, worked with Samita one-on-one in her group. I voiced in her group Infinity Folds in New York in performance, a dance-based project. Pre-pandemic, I'll just say pre-pandemic, at some point pre-pandemic. And the breath, I have an extensive practice in gyrotonic, gyrokinesis, yoga, Pilates, different types of yoga. Yoga is breath. Coming to breath and recognizing that as my life force. I'm in a physical form, and I am being powered by my breath, and I'm not the only one, obviously, on this earth. So that is our connection, is the breath.
I want to ask you completely different, like changing gears and going to the invitation of the Stage and TVA 21 Academy to develop in a performance for the camera, which open up a new medium, the video and the film, as a new layer as well on your choreographic and dance practice. I remember at some point when we were discussing a bit of the production and the development work, you really wanted the camera very close to you, how I can dance with it, right? I feel like you wanted that sensation that it was touching you. And I felt in a way you have choreographed many bodies. In this case, you were considering your own body, you were dealing with the body of the water, of the land, of the turtle, and also of the camera. What has it brought to your practice working with this new layer of the video and the film?
I mean, I feel stunned. I feel very stunned. I feel extraordinarily stunned to see my image dancing through story and time and space and spirit and energy and form. I feel stunned. I think I have been thinking on the camera quite since I was a child. And so I think it has been a curiosity that I was inside of, that I happened to be born into. Or not, I don't know. Maybe that was a choice. So I feel very stunned. I feel very excited. I feel extremely motivated to make more. Lots of ideas are coming. I'm like, I need more people in the studio. How do we make this a duet at the next film, a duet into a trio, into a chorus, now that I understand more of the effort, labor, production that goes into making the production, like the cost, the budget, the cameras, like we got to get the underwater, like this is not cheap. So gives me a whole new understanding of what is needed to get these stories made and experienced, because I'm seeing visions, I am smelling, tasting, and they need to get made.
Fantastic. I was going to ask you if it was the first chapter of a larger performance of video work, and I think you answered.
Yes. I'm so excited. I'm like, okay, if this was 3 minutes, I'm like, okay, maybe the duet can be next. And the duet, and then I'm also like, okay, the voice. I also want to get into the studio with people for singing and for voice and for storytelling. I have a branch. I'm seeing a branch of children's work, so it's things are growing. Things are growing. The shoots are definitely, out there. So.
And maybe just to finish, if you can tell us about the collaborative process that you established, because it's not new to you working with people. It's part of the dance to work with other bodies and other producer, but here you add many layers of music composition, filmmaker. How did you integrate then little by little and blending the choreography and what it meant to you working collaboratively?
Yeah, well, first I need to shout out Benedict Nguyen. She is an amazing co-producer and has been working with me for some time. And Benedict is amazing and an integral part of this production. Thank you, Benedict. Amin, who is the DP, cinematographer, Amin's eye and vision, I am so grateful for. I have already mentioned Haruna, who is the director and has gone above and beyond anything that I could have possibly done on my own. Haruna is amazing. I am so grateful to her. Somehow this is getting made on her computer, like the technology. She has the information, the knowledge, the know-how, the soul, the desire, the spirit to converse and to talk. And we can get into conversation about the next best idea so that we could possibly get to, so that we can get this thing made. And thank you, Haruna. I also need to shout out Evan Kocha, who was an integral part of this film, and to Vitor, the sound design person, to the colorist. I am amazed at how many people it takes working in a true team effort to make a film, and I'm just so grateful. Wow.
I'm also very grateful and happy to have started this conversation a couple of years ago and continue it. And very excited to see the work, this new work that you are premiering, that is your first maybe of many more video work where you are blending your choreographic, dance, body, rhythm, singing material with the layers of the film. And I am very excited that the people can see it very soon. I mean, now on a stage. Thank you very much, Fana.
So much, John, Nina, TVA 21 Academy. Thank you so much. Just began on Instagram, and I am amazed.